Hello and welcome to another Head2Head, and good morning, Keith Sutherland.
Good morning, Denis English.
Keith, you've had a procession of council hopefuls, candidates through here again this week, and I think we have Thomas Prince this afternoon. How are things shaping up?
Well, it's very hard to know. I think we're going to have a clean sweep in Epilogue Ward. I don't think there's any chance that the current existing councils will get back there. I think possibly Whipstick, you might get two of the incumbents, Councillor Peter Cox and Councillor Williams, James Williams. In the Lockwood Ward, I'm thinking that perhaps Rod Fife, but there is a groundswell of opinion out there. They want change for the change's sake, and I think we will see several new councillors. Hard to predict where we're going to end up, but yeah, that's pretty powerful. 9 days to go, and everyone's really having a crack at the last minute, of course. It
occurred to me the other day, and somebody asked me the question and said, look, with the way it's shaping up, we'd met most of the candidates, the likelihood of it being even less harmonious in terms of council than it has been, and there is the potential for that to happen, particularly with a couple of areas. You could end up with a real block that I would argue probably in touch with the common theme of arguing a point on issues that perhaps people would wish would go away, but at the same time reflective of the views of the community, and on the other hand an establishment agenda looking probably at the traditional council areas.
And that could happen because by and large you've really got three Greens, then you've got in each of the wards, and they're going under the endorsed candidates of the Greens. Yep. Then in each of the wards there are three people that are anti-mosque people. Who knows? This will sort of give the level of disillusionment out in the community. So if one of each of those got on, there is a block in itself. So you just never know.
It could be really interesting. The question asked to me was, they said, look, what do you reckon the likelihood is that if we end up with a real block and a level of disharmony, that you might end up with Daniel Andrews and co, and they've shown a preparedness to do that with Geelong, to look at the council. So I guess as a community, there's a real level of responsibility there to hope that we get a council that can work harmoniously together, regardless of the diverse views around the table, but are able to put the best interests of the community of Bendigo City and the ratepayers first. And I would hope that regardless of who gets in, that's the case.
And that's the thing, that's what you're hoping for, because we're going through the process. It's been an ongoing process. First person put up their hand was about 2 years ago. So there's been a lot of information coming through. There's lots of the seminars and involvements happening at the moment. We hope that we can get a harmonious, and that's the right word that you use, council that can work together. You may not agree on things, you might have a diverse opinion on it, but at the end of the day you can work for the betterment of the community, and let's hope that that's the outcome we get in Bendigo.
CFA is still in the news, Keith, and with all the rain we've had, we haven't heard a lot of talk about it yet, but we will no doubt hear very shortly a lot of talk about the fire danger coming up with so much growth. And I said last week I'd driven across a fair bit of regional Victoria lately, and even up into Wagga. Amazing the amount of water and the amount of growth there is. So it's going to be a hell of a year once things start drying out, if they ever do. But the CFA, that issue won't go away, and I'd love to get your thoughts on what Turnbull's done with getting through the legislation, I think by 4 or 5 votes, that he said he would get through to protect the volunteers in terms of outcomes like that we've had in Victoria.
Well, you know my opinion on this one. It's always been a political...
I wouldn't have a clue.
It's always been a political stunt, and it worked very successfully for Malcolm Turnbull in Victoria. And I noticed yesterday when you got Michaela Cash coming out, the Employment Minister, you know you're in for a bun fight. And that's what it is. It will come back to the Fair Work, to them to make some decisions around this. Everyone says, when you read the context of it all, that it's really a federal government getting involved in a state issue. It's something that Daniel Andrews has brought on himself, and he hasn't done much credit for the party in the ways fought it. I also noticed yesterday that it was interesting to see the huge back down from the New South Wales government for the Baird coming back to the allowing the greyhounds. They're now suggesting that maybe Daniel Andrews should have a back down from the United Firefighters Union and CFA to get some resolution, because it's going on. It's not helping the Andrews government. It's not helping the CFA. It's not helping, because there are two sides to the story, but unfortunately politics has got involved in it. And let's hope that the Fair Work do make a decision sometime in the future, who's right, who's wrong, because I don't think any of us know the real context of what drives this issue for Daniel Andrews, but he's been very strong on it, and I don't think it's helped his government at all.
Yeah, you really wonder whether it is a case of being on the knife edge at the moment, tossing up whether to back down. But I don't know I'm not privy to what's gone on behind the scenes, but I can't see him backing down when you've had another chief, or not a chief fire officer, but a very senior fire service.
Too many of them. So there are questions.
Only yesterday.
Yeah.
So how long this can go on and fester away when you've got rid of the board and the people running the show, everyone's rejected it, and your minister, I just don't get how you can be so determined to stick with the plan. So I can't see him doing a U-turn on it anytime soon. I must say, on the Mike Baird thing, I was amazed last night. Not amazed, I wasn't surprised at all really, but because it's typical. The opposition leader in New South Wales saying how hopeless it was that he would come out and show a lack of leadership by doing a U-turn on the Greyhound decision. I just sat there and shook my head, and I thought, well, I give Mike Baird 10 points. One for one, I think he's one of the most easily communicative leaders in the whole country, and has been. He showed that through the Sydney siege, and every other area I think of activity up there. He's done a damn good job. Just an easy, relaxed way of relating to the voting public. But he can't take a trick. I mean, he's actually shown leadership by saying, hey, we were wrong. You couldn't get more honest than coming out and saying that we were wrong, I was wrong, and we're fixing it. Now, whether he was wrong or not remains to be seen. You'd have to have a plebiscite to do that. We know where that's going to go.
Well, your good friend Alan Jones is now his media advisor there. So if your friend Alan Jones is telling him to back down and go for it, well, then you can be sure that he's in good hands. Not.
The marriage equality debate won't go away either, Keith, and you've had... I saw a sad-faced Billy Bob Shorten had his sad face on last night on the news, lamenting the fact that this was going to be stalled again. And I mean, I'm so over the false, the hypocrisy that goes with so many of these political things at any level of government. And I don't know whether the public, the average viewer, sees through it, but it's just so transparent. The political point scoring on all sides, from all sides, on issues that are important, and I'm not even saying just that one, but any number. The economy is the most important issue, and yet you still got this political point scoring. It frustrates the hell out of me to see what's going on in this country at the moment.
I'm glad you talked about the hypocrisy of it all, because Malcolm Turnbull, your Prime Minister, suggested ages ago, plebiscite is a stupid idea. Bill Shorten thought he didn't care whether it was a plebiscite or not. Now he's gone against it, and I rightfully so. I think the hate
But he
speech...
was against marriage equality years ago,
yes,
then he was for it. And
at least Malcolm Turnbull has had a consistent point. He's in favour of marriage equality. No, but I'm going back to your friend Malcolm Turnbull.
Oh, right.
The fact is that Malcolm Turnbull certainly supports marriage equality, and full marks to him on that issue. The point is that he didn't want the plebiscite, but because he's caught by the right wing of his party, the Nationals, who have come out very strongly to have the plebiscite, he has to go along with it. So that really shows weak leadership coming from Malcolm Turnbull. There's someone that didn't want the plebiscite, but because he's forced for pragmatic reasons and he wants to keep the numbers, he wants to be Prime Minister, so you have to bow in and give in to everybody that's an issue that's against the whole thing. So it's an absolute mess, and it's been brought on by Tony Abbott, and unfortunately we'll just continue on. And the same-sex marriage, there's no end in sight to getting resolution.
One of the most ridiculous things I've heard said about that whole thing was last night, and it was Bill Shorten being interviewed, and I think it was on the ABC, no, it was on the Project, and Shorten said that giving the no case funding to advertise and promote their no case was wrong because it made them equal to the yes vote. Now,
well, I didn't hear that, but that was a ridiculous statement.
When you're talking about marriage equality on the one hand, and equality, whether it's the Indigenous or whatever it is, at every level, how can anybody in his position come out and say, oh, it's wrong to allow the no case to be treated equally to the yes case in terms of government funding for... Are
you sure he said that? Because I've listened to lots of the interviews, and the argument was that both parties, yes and no, should get equal money. I totally disagree with anyone getting any money because it's really not an issue. It is an issue for the government to make on their own. You don't have plebiscites on anything else. So John Howard changed it before when he changed the Marriage Act. every other major issue in this country, even going to war. We don't have a plebiscite on that. So why do it?
Well, that's
it's
why you
to
have a
placate
religious
religious groups and Tony's right-wing's friends. That's why we're doing it.
Well, if you're watching this and that's still in this interview, then I've checked it to make sure Bill did show that last night. I will check it.
I haven't seen that, and I'm surprised if he has said that. If he did, it was stupid.
Keith, there wouldn't be a coffee shop around town at the moment that hasn't heard the topic of the Trump-Clinton debate pop up. How did you rate the outcome there?
I just thought it was terrible the way before the actual debate that Donald Trump brings these people out in a forum, and there was alleged rape involved. There was also harassment from Hillary involved in this allegations. Then Hillary has to come out in front of Donald Trump, knowing this is all out there in the public domain. The whole thing was so demeaning, and then it goes on, crooked Hillary, and then Donald Trump never answered.
Line, hasn't
he has, and it's certainly getting him some votes, and it's making some inroads. But he never stuck to answering any questions because he has no policy. It's policy on the run. And your point before that you worry about where Australia's at, because obviously we might have to take sides against what's happening with China and America. And it's just terrible. The trade point of view from where we trade with China. And Donald Trump's going to build a wall, he's going to do this. I just think it's sad for the free world to have these two people, if that's the best from the Democrats and Republicans to come up with, it's just pitiful. And it's become a soap opera, the whole thing.
Well, it shows to me, again, we've said it before, how cheesed off the average person is with the establishment, as in what they see as the privileged people who've had a tendency to run the show and have hung on to it, and we've seen it here as well.
Money and power.
Money and power. And you see it, even in Australia, you'll see long-term politicians of 20, 30 years, and it becomes a sense of entitlement and also this, I think, a detached view of the world. And really what people over there are reacting against at the moment, a perceived lack of connection between government and whether it be health or education or jobs, the social lack of cohesion with so much in the way of racial issues around immigration, that people are cheesed off with it, and they're saying we've had a guts full of government that is sitting on Capitol Hill and really dishing it out the policies, but at the end of the day we're the silly poor buggers picking up the tab.
And that seems to be the thing, and you can understand the disillusionment with the voters, and this election I can't imagine that it'll be a record turnout at all, but both sides at the moment, I'm sort of pleased personally to think that Hillary is in front, but who knows that there is a strong support for change in America, and it's not just America, it's a whole world. There's a strong opinion across the board, even bring it back to local government here in Bendigo. There's a strong opinion out there that they want change, but change is always not going to be beneficial for the long term. But the Clinton and Trump contest over there is just a disaster, and I just think it's just terrible. But it is a soap opera, and that's the way it's turned out. Instead of two mature people debating issues, policies, that's not happening. It's just denigrating each other.
All right, Keith, great to catch up again this week, and we'll be a week away from the council elections next time we get together.
We're very close.
A bit of water under the bridge between now and then, and so much on the line for Bendigo, let alone the US when they go to the polls at their level. So thanks again for today, Keith.
Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again next week.